But let's get a bit more industry analysis with Gerry Soejatman. He's an aviation specialist. He joins us live now from Jakarta. Gerry, many thanks for joining us today. So little information at the moment, and I don't want you to speculate. It puts you in a difficult position. But what are your initial thoughts on what has happened, or what could have happened?
My initial reaction was, okay, could this be another security threat? But then, again, it's been said the flight left Paris instead of going to Paris, so that would make it quite unlikely. Now, there is a very interesting point that one of your reporters made, which was the aircraft was reported to have made a 90-degree left turn and then followed by a 360-degree right turn. And then there was no other calls. Now, if it's if it's a 90-degree turn left or right at cruising altitude, if it is made in conjunction with the airplane descending, that would indicate that there was a pressurization problem, because that would be the standard procedure. But again, it's very early days. We don't know.
What do you mean by? Sorry to interrupt you. What do you mean by a pressurization problem? What do you mean by that?
Loss of cabin pressure.
Right. Okay.
So if it's a loss of cabin pressure, if it's a rapid loss of cabin pressure, what they would do is they would descend. Now, if they descend along an airway, there's a risk of hitting an aircraft below you. So what you do is the standard procedure is to make a 90-degree turn, left or right, depending on the situation that's required. So that is a possibility, but we haven't found the plane, so we can't really say, oh, that it must be that. No.
And what would cause this loss of cabin pressure, potentially?
It could be anything. It could be a malfunction. It could be a detonation. It could be anything. So even that, if we say it's loss of cabin pressure, that's not the final answer. The final answer will be what caused it. And for that, we need to have the wreckage, we need to have the pieces of the aircraft, we need to have the black boxes analyzed, everything for us to conclude. And
in terms of the search and rescue itself, I mean, how difficult would that be in this particular area, do you know?
Well, it shouldn't be as difficult as some other parts of the world. I mean, if you compare it with AirAsia crash that happened in Indonesia, that went down in shallow waters and the current was very strong. So, but finding it was relatively easy. Air France in the Atlantic was relatively easy to be found, but recovering it was very difficult because it's very deep. Now, I'm not familiar with the seas in that area, but the Mediterranean Sea is not a violent body of water, so it should be a pretty straightforward operation. But the question is, they got to find it first.
And there have been conflicting reports about this distress call, whether there was one or not. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, if there was that loss of cabin pressure, there would have been some time. Would you have expected the pilot to have let out some sort of distress call at that point?
Yes, we would expect that. But again, each incident is very different from one another. You have the standard procedures which would require you to make a call. But the priority for the pilot is to fly the aircraft first, and then to direct it somewhere, and then you tell someone about it. So telling someone about it is not the first priority, because as a pilot, your main task is to save the aircraft first. So if it is just a simple pressurization problem, then the pilot should have made the call. If it is a compounding problem, as in more than one problem, then yes, they could be quite saturated. They would be focusing on flying the aircraft and navigating it before they get to communicate it. Now, the signal that was said to have been detected, the distress, they said it's a distress signal. Initially, what I heard was a distress signal. It wasn't a distress call.
Right.
Now, each aircraft would carry a beacon, and that beacon would activate upon impact. As long as it stays above water, it should work. Now, we only heard about that briefly, and now the news about that has disappeared. So, but given the circumstances of, look, the aircraft's been missing for over 10 hours now, so it must have gone down somewhere. So it is quite likely that that distress beacon was from the aircraft having an impact.
Okay, Gerry, good to speak to you. Gerry Soejatman there, an aviation analyst, joining us there from Jakarta. Many thanks for joining us.